has cranked up production in Mexico ahead of a potential 25% tariff on vehicles imported to the US. If Trump keeps the tariffs for an extended period, Nissan might have to pass on some of the cost to customers. Read the story. Japan's auto industry is bracing for potentially significant production cutbacks at home if US tariffs on auto shipments go ahead in 2 weeks, as automakers including Toyota, Honda, and Nissan scramble to limit damage to the domestic export engine and supply chain. Read the story. Ford is stockpiling parts that comply with the U.S. Mexico-Canada agreement, reassessing cross-border operations and telling suppliers to keep shipping under existing contract terms as it weighs the impact of tariffs. Read the story. The Canadian government says it will impose 25% tariffs on U.S. goods worth $21 billion in retaliation for the 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum the Trump administration imposed March 12. Read the story. Automakers and suppliers are bracing for impact as tariffs proposed by Trump threaten to destabilize the supply chain. But the industry has become accustomed to such turbulence. The coronavirus pandemic, the microchip shortage, and the transition to electric vehicles forced automakers to reshape parts networks during the past few years. Read the story. Trump said he was re-evaluating plans to double steel and aluminum tariffs on Canada to 50% after Ontario announced it would suspend a 25% surcharge on electricity sent to the U.S. Read the story. All U.S. steel and aluminum imports will be subject to at least a 25% tariff beginning March 12, as the auto industry braces for a host of other duties to go into effect April 2. Read the story. President Donald Trump doubled his planned tariff on all steel and aluminum products coming into the United States from Canada, bringing the total to 50%, in response to the province of Ontario placing a 25% tariff on electricity coming into the U.S. Read the story. Canada will keep in place its retaliatory tariffs against U.S.-made products as long as President Donald Trump persists with the trade war, said Mark Carney, the Canadian Prime Minister-designate. The Canadian government is rightly retaliating with our own tariffs, Carney said at his victory speech March 9, according to Bloomberg. My government will keep our tariffs on until the Americans show us respect and make credible, reliable commitments to free and fair trade. Read the story. President Donald Trump's plan for significant tariffs on vehicles produced in Canada and Mexico would probably be a mixed bag for the auto loans and leases tied to a significant proportion of dealership profits. Read the story. President Donald Trump said tariffs on Mexico and Canada could go higher than a 25% rate imposed earlier this week, injecting further uncertainty into trade policies that have rattled markets and left businesses on edge. Read the story. President Donald Trump will exempt Mexican and Canadian goods covered by the North American Trade Agreement known as USMCA from his 25% tariffs, offering major reprieves to the U.S. two largest trading partners. Read the story. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick on March 6 said the 1-month reprieve on hefty tariffs on goods imported from Mexico and Canada that has been granted to automotive products is likely to be extended to all products that comply with the USMCA. Read the story. UAW President Shawn Fain spent much of 2024 deriding President Donald Trump as a scab who would be a complete disaster for the working class, while Trump blamed Fain for the union's woes and called for his firing. But Fain is among the few high-profile figures in the auto industry to publicly support Trump's 25% tariffs on imports from Mexico and Canada that analysts have said could wipe out Detroit 3 profits, crimp production, and add thousands of dollars to the price of a new vehicle. Read the story. Mexico has played a crucial production role for Volkswagen Group in North America, especially for its namesake and Audi brands in the U.S. market. Read the story. Auto supplier Linamar Corp. isn't contemplating shuttering plants in Canada or Mexico and shifting production to the U.S., despite the tariffs. Read the story. The Trump administration's goal to lure manufacturers to the U.S. to avoid hefty tariffs could backfire with some automotive suppliers. A third of U.S. suppliers said they would move production outside the U.S. if 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico persisted for 6 months, according to a February survey by MEMA Original Equipment Suppliers, which represents U.S. parts makers. Read the story. The auto industry is embracing relief from tariffs on imports from Canada and Mexico that could overturn the North American supply chain. But the reprieve is only temporary. Read the story. For automotive retailers, Trump's 25% tariffs on imports from Canada and Mexico could be cause for whiplash. Read the story. Stellantis said it shares Trump's goal of building more cars in the U.S., as it thanked him for granting a 1-month exemption from tariffs on Canada and Mexico. Read the story. President Donald Trump will exempt automakers from his punishing 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico for 1 month as long as they comply with the terms of an existing free trade agreement, the White House said March 5. Read the story. Car buyers will have to absorb more of the tariff impacts than consumers purchasing other goods because of several auto industry idiosyncrasies, including the uniqueness of automotive parts, the supplier financial picture and customer brand loyalty. Read the story. Some Forvia customers have accepted contract modifications to cover the costs of tariffs for imported parts, said Francois Tardif, executive